Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse in their drive-through. I am picture in picture right now with one of the people in this community that I've gotten to know since I came back in 2011 from living down in Florida the last 11 years. Here's the irony. In 2011, they won a sectional championship. Here in 2022, 11 years later, we're celebrating a sectional championship. And the majority of this time in between, I've been sitting next to this man and arm in arm with Joe Corley, the head coach of the West Genesee Wildcats football team. It was the first show we ever did at the Wildcat Sports Pub almost 7 years ago. So I feel this personally for a friend more than anything else. Respect him as a coach. We have a great professional relationship, but more than anything, I didn't care what his record was when I asked him to sit down with me the first time, because as he knows and the team knows, they are always welcome. And now seeing how far this program has risen and what they've gotten to win a sectional title, it is an honor, a privilege, and I don't think I have enough intro time to say how happy I am for Joe Corley and West Genesee. With that being said, Coach, how are you?
Doing well, Dan. I appreciate all that, and all that works both ways. I mean, I think you do a great job, getting kids, student athletes, not just us, not just football, but all sports in the area, positive exposure. And you can't, I can't express to you how much I appreciate that, because it means a lot to me. It means a lot to our kids. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much so. I know you had a lot of kind words over the years. The last time we sat at the Wildcat, normally I get the last word and I get to say goodnight to everybody. And you threw in a little audible there and said some things, and I appreciate that, Joe. It means a lot coming from somebody like you.
Well, you deserve it, man. I really mean that.
Thank you, and you do too. When I met you almost 7 years ago, this program was struggling. I think you and I were talking about it off the air, 0-8 at the time. So what can you say about the fact that, this school has stayed the course, that Mike Burns, the AD, has stayed the course with you, and that you've been here throughout? Because there's been adversity, there's been ups and downs. And when I met you, it was a tumultuous year. It was a tough year, but I look at the person, I look at the character of the individual. And so to me, I was never worried that wins weren't eventually going to come. What can you say about West Genesee staying the course with you en route to now another sectional title?
It exactly that. It stay the course. I mean, we all know that high school sports, with very few exceptions, go through ups and downs. They go through tough times, and that certainly is difficult, and it wasn't fun. But that's also tends to be what makes us stronger. When you go through tough times and you're forced to face adversity and work through it, I believe we get stronger, and that's where your true colors come out. And sometimes that can bring the best out in us. And I think that's exactly what it did. It forced us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, are we really giving the best we possibly can? What are we doing well? What can we do better? What can we do differently? And we stuck to what we do, but we found ways to improve. And we obviously had some great kids come through the program. So we're very blessed for that too.
Yeah, and I got the opportunity to start off the week with Seamus Shanley, and he has a very interesting story. And you know this, being a coach and just being around the sport as long as you have. Sports in general, it's a very tiny world, and the longer you stay in it, the smaller it gets. He's in this very unique atmosphere that Seamus was part of the 2011 Section 3 Class AA championship team. So he has a lot of love for you and a lot of respect for you with all of that. He's part of that team 11 years ago. Then 11 years later in 2022, he gets to call the game of his alma mater. Awesome. And you guys do it again, this time with Class A. And he played in the Dome when he was with West Genesee and played in the Dome at Syracuse. So what can you say to the Seamus Shanley story, that he's bridged the gap of both, he's been a part of both, and the fact that they both had to do with him being in the Dome, staying local, a very multi-layered kind of ironic thing that happened?
Seamus is the classic example, the classic story of dream big, chase your dreams, go after them, work for them, and make them a reality. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, but I was probably one of Seamus's biggest doubters coming out of high school. When he told me he wanted to walk on to Syracuse, I respected that, and I thought it was great that he had a goal and he was dreaming. and dreaming big, and he was going after it. But I also thought to myself, here's a kid that can probably go to a Portland or an Ithaca or a Brockport or a Buff State and have a great 4-year Division III career. Um, you know, he had a dream. He went after it. He achieved it. And 4 years later, he's a starting offensive guard in the ACC, a kid that proved me wrong. And I'll tell you, as coaches, I feel like we have an obligation to be honest with kids and steer them in the right direction and point them toward success. But we also love it when kids prove us wrong, and that I can say that for in season. For example, we come out with a preseason depth chart, and the kid surprises us and goes from a 3 to a 2 or a 2 to a starter. Or in Seamus's case, where I recommend he plays Division III football, which is great, and instead he becomes a starter for SU and starts 5 games in the ACC. I mean, how awesome is that? So always proud of Seamus, and I will tell his story time and time again to show kids that you can dream big and achieve your dreams.
And Seamus and I spoke about the story that, he tells for West Genny, and that being the fact that not only is there enough spotlight on West Genny, but he has felt for a very long time that when people do talk about West Genny, it's not about the football team, and he's wanted to change that. In these 11 years between titles for Section 3, where do you think things are at? And what do you think about his fact of saying, hey, we need to put a spotlight here, and I don't think we talk about the football program enough?
I think we're right where we need to be. Obviously, when you think West Genny, you probably think lacrosse first. You probably think hockey first. And I have a lot of respect for those programs, those coaches. And I'm proud to be, part of this school and to be in some way affiliated with that, just through being at West Genny. To me, it's about the football players, and some people may think of West Genesee as a hockey or lacrosse school first, but we think of it as a football school, and that's really all that matters to me. I'm proud of our kids, and I'm proud of the work they put in, and I'm proud of what they've accomplished. And if people put lacrosse or hockey first, that's certainly fine. No one can take away what we've accomplished, and that's what I told the guys after the game Friday night, that this is ours forever, and no one can take it away from us. That's all that matters to me, is that our kids have a great experience, and they have.
Speaking here with Joe Corley, the head coach of the West Genesee Wildcats football team that just got their Section 3 Class A title, moving on to the state playoffs. You had a unique season. We talked about it when we were sitting on stage at the Wildcat Sports Pub, and that being the fact that you had to play your first 4 games on the road because of upgrades being made to the facilities at West Genesee, things that'll pay off in the long run. But in the short term, it was, adversity and having to be away from home and to have to kind of adjust to everything and the way you had to practice and the things that you had to do. Those first 4 games, all being on the road, you went 2-2 in those games. Your only losses of the season came in the first 3 weeks of play at Whitesboro and at Fayetteville Manlius, and then you had wins at New Hartford and at Auburn. Bring me into those first 4 weeks and what those losses taught you, as well as the background of the fact that you had to play a very unique season.
I think those first 2 losses kind of made us who we are today. I think, we were still a relatively young team. We had a lot of new faces in the squad coming into the season, and I think we had to kind of find ourselves, find our identity early on. And it was also a character check for us. We had to go through those first 4 games on the road, and 2 of them were all the way out in the Utica area. So they were long bus rides. They were against very tough opponents. So we were challenged. I believe the toughest part of our schedule were the first 3 games. But to me, again, it goes back to facing adversity and going through tough times. And if you handle it the right way and you stay focused and you learn from it, you become stronger as a result. And that's exactly what we did.
Your team has scored a lot of points in certain games. In other games, you've played real close contests and defensively been able to shut teams down. You and I have talked about this in the past, that you've been able to be a chameleon of sorts at West Genesee, where you can score high when you need to. And in other games, you can fight in the trenches defensively in a lockdown under 20-point game. Why can this team be multiple this year?
Because they're a team, because they're in it for each other and they stick together. And, if one guy's down, the next guy picks him up. That's what it's all about. We would love in a perfect world and in a perfect game where the offense comes out firing on every cylinder and scores a lot of points, and the defense throws up a shutout, but that rarely happens. So if there's ever a time where our defense is struggling, you want the offense to respond and take the pressure off, and vice versa. We've been able to do that all year. especially since that second loss to FM. I'm proud of our guys for that, being able to stick together and pick each other up when we needed to.
Yeah, and we look at defensively, 3 of the last 4 games that you played, and 3 of those games being in the sectional playoffs, you have held teams in 3 of the last 4 games to 7 points or less. Your final home game and final regular season game on my birthday, October 21st, held Corcoran 19-7. The sectionals for the quarterfinal round, 36-7 against Carthage, against Whitesboro on the road, 35-28. And then in the championship game at FM, 23-0. What is it about the defense that is showing up even more so right now? How has the maturation process come to life?
It's just their mental toughness, and Coach Smith does a great job of teaching mental and physical toughness. He's not an X's and O's kind of guy. He teaches the kids what they need to know. He makes sure they're prepared for what they need to be prepared for. But his big thing is going out, playing fast and physical, and playing with great toughness. And he's done a great job, teaching the kids how to be just that. But it comes back to the kids and their toughness, and the simple fact that they were going to refuse to be beat from this point on. They made a decision that they wanted it bad, and they were going to go get it.
Yeah, we look at that. Not only did you win the 3 games you needed to win to hoist up the Section 3 Class A trophy, but after that loss at FM 29-20 back on September 15th, the team has not had a loss since, with 8 straight victories. Just, like you said, they wanted it. They wanted to get after it. I know you talked about, I said, how do you do all these things offensively and defensively? You said, well, because it's a team. What have you seen from this team when they've had their mettle tested? Because it's not like in this, last 8 games winning 8 in a row. It's not like they haven't played in close games. It's not like there wasn't points in these games where they had been challenged. The guys that I met a few weeks ago when we sat down on stage and you and I were talking about the makeup of this team and the culture of the team and the different personalities you had, what have you seen collectively, and maybe if there's a leader or 2 individually that you've seen show up, that not only have they gone 8-0 in the last 8 games, but they've been able to withstand teams coming back and pushing, because not every game was easy, obviously.
I think it's just that. It's been their ability to handle adversity. And I think this goes back to the first half of the season, being forced to travel our first 4 games. The practice conditions were very, very difficult. At times they were just downright bad, given the field conditions we were forced to practice in. But I think that's what kind of shaped them to be as mentally tough as they are now. I give you, for example, the Corcoran game. We were in a dogfight for 4 quarters, and it took everything we had. So the guys have just developed that kind of callous, that mental toughness, and that ability to handle adversity through, I think, the first half, that first stretch of our season. If we're gonna, spotlight an individual, I think it's, pretty obvious that Vinny Frenzy is, in my opinion, the best overall football player in Section 3. When you look at the plays he makes for us on both sides of the ball, he doesn't come off the field. The kid has a workload like I haven't seen before. He's one of the very few quarterbacks I've allowed to play defense, and the kid just continually makes plays for us at clutch times when we need it. He's really a special kid. So we rallied around him. But all in all, it's the team's ability to stand in front of adversity and take it on head on. It's really impressed me, and I think has defined who we are.
Talk about Vinny Frenzy at your quarterback, and in this championship game against FM, 12 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown on the ground, while attempting 13 passes for the game and having a touchdown through the air as well. And you said, one of the few quarterbacks that you've ever let play on both sides of the ball. What is the thought moving forward? I mean, he's such an asset offensively. So what is the model for him as you step into the States?
Just keep doing what we've been doing, man. There's no point in trying to, reinvent the wheel at this point. We're going to let Vinny be Vinny, and we go into a game with a handful of concepts that we think will be successful throwing the ball. But we've kind of put that in his hands, and if he sees an opening and you want to make a play, make a play. For us to tell him not to make a play would be negligent, because he brings so much to our team.
And for you on the defensive side of it, pitching a shutout in the championship game says a lot about this team, especially when one of those 2 losses you had this season came to FM on the road 29-20. What was it that you saw in the first game against FM that you were able to exploit in the second game? And then defensively, specifically, just what you take away from a shutout like that?
Well, we watched a lot of our game from the first time we played them, and we really kind of spotlighted a lot of the mistakes that we made, a lot of the areas where we had opportunities to make plays or come up with big stops, and we either a missed tackle or a misalignment, something like that. It was more a matter of just kind of cleaning things up, correcting some mistakes, and then focusing on what we knew FM was going to do, and that's get the ball in number two's hands. And we come up with a game plan, and the kids stuck to it.
And we look at the fact that looking ahead here for States, you're going to be playing just a few minutes away from West Jenny, a good thing. CNS is hosting, so CNS will have their own game against Corning for Class AA. For Class A, Section 3, you will be representing, and for Section 4, Class A, Union-Endicott will be coming up from the Southern Tier. Just your thoughts on this upcoming game, knowing that you have Union-Endicott on the other side of things, and the fact that you get to play relatively close to home.
I love the fact that we're close to home, and that certainly is going to be an advantage to us. But UE is a very good football team. They've won 9 in a row since starting off 0-1. Section 4 is very good football, and I'm looking at their schedule and seeing how they just ran the table and dominated. They've got athletes on both sides of the ball. They run the ball very well, throw the ball very well. They're very balanced. They've got a lot of weapons. They're very dangerous. So we've got to come out and play, in my opinion, our best game of the year yet. It takes a great week of preparation. It takes a good game plan. So it takes an effort from all of us, myself included. That's what it's going to be.
And before I let you go, speaking with Seamus and speaking with you about it, one of the members of your coaching staff within these last couple of years, you had to say an early see you later to how just what you could say about playing for him, and if he was here right now, maybe what he would say to you.
He would say, keep it simple, stupid. Coach Phil was always about simplifying. He loved to run the ball. His whole thing was, one play gives you two, because you have one play, you go left, you go right, you got two. Two gives you four gives you 8. Keep it simple, stupid. Get good at one or two things. And I agree with that. It's one of those things where, to me, it's like, get so good at something and practice it so much that you can't get it wrong. Obviously, we've got to have some answers for things that could come up throughout a game, but like I said, Phil was all about keeping it simple, focusing on one or two things. But Phil also loved to go out after and have a beer. So his whole thing was, if you run the football, we'll get to the bar a lot sooner. So can you keep the ball on the ground, please? And he wasn't afraid to nudge me if I was throwing the ball too much. Say, hey, coach, not for nothing, but my Budweiser's getting warm. So can you hurry it up? He was a hell of a guy. The kids had a great deal of respect for him. And this senior class was the last group that he coached. So to be able to win it for him would mean a lot to them.
And you just said it, the senior class is the last one that he coached. So the fact that his fingerprints are very much on this team that's won a title in the section already, just what that means to you to honor him.
It means so much to honor him. In fact, I looked up and I saw Nancy up in the crowd, and I held my wristband up. It said, "Rest in peace, Coach Wright." Knowing that she's still following us and he's living on through her, it just it means a lot to me to honor him that way.
Absolutely. And a beautiful thing to be able to do that and to honor Coach Phil Wright in West Genesee and obviously Nancy and the whole family. Here, one final point that I find very ironic again is the fact that we chose this year to honor the 2011 team during the summer before the season even got started.
Yeah, we did.
Knowing that we were going to be sitting here talking about another championship team. How ironic and funny and kind of poetic is the fact that you got to sit with your players from the 2011 team, and when we were at the Wildcat over the summer, and here we are again with another championship team.
I didn't even think about that until you brought it up, Dan, to be honest. But I guess, it means a lot to me to be able to honor those guys. That was a special group. And that group came up just short in the regionals. We lost the game by 1 point that we probably should have won. In fact, we definitely should have won. And I think there is a blank check for how far that team could have gone in state. So to represent them and go grab one for them would mean a lot to me and to them too.
Coming from Joe Corley, West Genesee football head coach, as they get set to move on to states. That game is going to be this Friday, folks. You need to make sure you get out to the game. And I'm ecstatic about the fact that we get to have that. It's going to be at CNS this Friday, November 18th at 8 p.m. And we'll see you in the stands for that. Coach, as always, thank you for your time. And thank you for everything that you've given me professionally and personally on and off the field.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you all you do. And hopefully we're chatting next week about the semifinals.
Absolutely.